Sri Aurobindo gives a beautiful reply. He says, as for the surrender, it is not inconsistent with the witness attitude. On the contrary, by liberating from the ordinary Prakriti, it makes easier the surrender to the higher or divine power. Very often when this witness attitude has not been taken, but there is a successful calling in of the force to act in one of the first things the force does is to establish the witness attitude so as to be able to act with less interference or immixture from the movements of the lower Prakriti. So what he's saying is, when you really surrender to the mother and you open to her force and the force descends, one of the first things the descending force does is it establishes a witness attitude in you. Toll says presence arises in you, right? The same thing, when the force descends, automatically from being identified with thought, you're taken back to that consciousness beyond thought, the witness poise. So surrender can lead you to the witness, and the witness is actually an ultimately surrendered state. The witness is not surrendering to this or that. It's just surrendering to everything. It's allowing everything to come and go without interference, right? So in Sufism, they call the Purusha or the witness the Shaheed, the surrendered one. Doesn't interfere with anything, just allows everything to be. So yeah, witness and surrender are very, very connected actually. Again, very beautiful words from Sri Aurobindo's synthesis of yoga. When the individual soul is entirely at one in its being and knowledge with the Lord and directly in touch with the original Shakti, the transcendent mother. So when we are directly in touch with the mother and the Lord, the supreme will can then arise in us too, in the high divine manner as the thing that must be and is achieved by the spontaneous action of nature. So when we are one with the mother, we obviously don't have thoughts of personal will. Then the supreme will arises in us and guides us to do exactly what needs to be done. Right now, when we are acting from our own mental will, we are always not sure, right? Am I doing right? Am I doing wrong? But when we are really quiet and that will arises within us to do this or do that, then it's a beautiful state. And it says, there is then no desire, no responsibility, no reaction. All takes place in the peace, calm, light, power of the supporting and enveloping and inhabiting this divine. So beautiful. So when you're really one with God and you're receiving the impulsion to action from then, you have no desire, no responsibility. It's as if you're really carried. Now, we are carried all the time, but imagine that lower hand carrying the upper hand. Imagine what joy if everything we do was that movement of just being carried. That's what he's saying. There is then no desire, no responsibility, no reaction. All takes place in the peace, calm, light, power of the supporting and enveloping and inhabiting divine. So Janina says, I call her my eternal holiday. So beautiful. She calls the mother the eternal holiday. All my life I have been longing for such repose, and now since the worst burden, the mind, has lost its supremacy over me, I just feel as if I'm being carried in her arms. So beautiful to think of the mother as our eternal holiday, to just fall into her and let her carry us. Then whatever we are doing, we are not doing anything, we are resting. So now words from Savitri. All nature was a conscious front of God. So this nature that we wear, it's appearing to be ordinary, this, that, but it's a conscious front of God. A wisdom worked in all, self-moved, self-sure. A plenitude of illimitable light. An authenticity of intuitive truth. A glory and passion of creative force, infallible, leaping from eternity. The moment's thought inspired the passing act. So this state that Sri Aurobindo says in Synthesis of Yoga, there is then no desire, no responsibility, no reaction. All takes place in the peace, calm, light, power of the supporting and enveloping and inhabiting divine. And that's what is being said in Savitri, a wisdom worked in all, a self-moved, self-sure, a plenitude of illimitable light. So in another line in Savitri, it's expressed differently. It says, even through the mists of mortal thought, infallible are thy mysterious steps. So even through the confusion of my thinking, that wisdom which is supporting me and guiding me from behind, infallible are its mysterious steps. So I remember, this is such a strange story. Once I was in Pondicherry and I was at Golconda, and a friend of mine had come to Golconda. He had just recovered from, actually he hadn't recovered from dengue, but he was one of those who'd want to go to the mother's room every year on his birthday. So although he could hardly stand, somehow he made his way to Pondi, came to Golconda. I didn't know how bad he was because he looked very happy, and it was evening, and I asked him that, should I get you some dinner? Do you need dinner? No, I've eaten dry fruit. I'm fine. So I believed him. He looked fine. I went to the Samadhi. At night, I always go to the Samadhi. I'm walking to the Samadhi and a thought's coming. Let me call him Z. Z is hungry. So I said, but Z can't be hungry. He told me he's had dinner. So I took 2 more steps. Again, Z is very hungry, Z is very hungry, it wouldn't stop. And then I said, but this is irrational. But that voice was so loud that I looked around for food. Now around the ashram, everything at night is shut. That time there was no bread and chocolate and all. This was years ago. So then I went to A2B. A2B was also shutting. There was nothing. There was only some orange juice left. So I bought as much orange juice and I went to Zed's room. Now I don't like to disturb people at night at Golconda. You're not supposed to. But that voice kept hammering, and I very tentatively told Zed that, you know, I don't know why I got this thought that you're hungry and I've got you this juice, because there was nothing else. And he just took the juice and he teared up and he looked at mother and he said, I was so hungry that I was dizzy with hunger. So I said, but why didn't you tell me? But it's his policy. He never asks human beings for anything. And the mother always provides. So that's where I saw very clearly this example that even through the mists of mortal thought, my thought was believing what he said, that he's full. Infallible are thy mysterious steps. What needed to be done, it kept hammering.